The board is here. So I would say, let's get ourselves started. Does everybody have an agenda? I'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a moment and center ourselves, focus ourselves, and from there. Okay. Okay, so item on number 2 is adoption of agenda, which you've got there. And I want to do just a little explanation. I wanted to emphasize the role of reports, and that doesn't mean that everybody that's listed here is required to say anything. We'll kind of work that out as we go along, but I wanted you to be able to see all the possible people who have a legitimate opportunity to report at that point. And so minutes. And somehow I gave away my minutes, I guess. All right, the minutes from the July meeting. And there was a different kind of meeting in the sense that we didn't have a lot of business. Mostly the focus of the meeting was in the training that Kayla did with us. Okay. There must be a couple of different versions floating around. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's a little error that well, Kayla's name was up here someplace in one of the versions. It doesn't matter. Mhm. As it stands right now, I have one version. Oh, here she is up at the top. That's what I was looking for. So Kayla DeChristina, our zoning administrator, led us through the tree board documents, helped us understand our role better, and she's going to be doing that at some point in the next couple of weeks with our new members, so that we'll all be more or less on the same page in terms of understanding of what it is we're supposed to be doing. So is there any correction or addition to the minutes from last month? Hearing nothing, I'll say we are adopting them. Okay, so I'm looking up and Angie has come into the room, and the order of the day is to install our new member. We have Tyler Smith with us.
Do you, Tyler Smith, swear or affirm that you will well and truly execute the duties of the tree board of the town of Montreat according to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God?
Sure.
Well, it feels very good to me to have a full board.
Yeah. Thank you.
And,
Yeah, good.
Great to have
We're-
Tyler with us.
We're all here, and from here on out, we're going to be doing great things together. So welcome, Tyler. Thank you, Angie. Okay, do we have public comments? All right. So moving on to reports. There were 2 or 3 things at the end of the last meeting that I said that I would be working on, and one of them was working with Mason on filling the vacant position. That is done. One, they can speak for themselves when the time comes, but I also said that I would be talking with Barry about scheduling. My understanding in that conversation, Barry, was that you're saying that we need to be aware that summertime is a very busy time for the Public Works group, but that in general, the schedule as it is works okay for you.
Yes, sir.
So, we had said we could be flexible and find another time to meet, but I'm hearing Barry saying that it's really not essential, not necessary for us to be doing that, at least at this time. But I just a general comment, if things get at a point where it's difficult for people to attend a particular schedule that we have, it's a long-standing traditional thing to meet on Tuesday, the last Tuesday of the month, but that's something that can be changed if we decide it's necessary, with the board, the commissioner's approval, of course. I had said that we talked about the tree management guide, and I was going to try to have that available here today. And I have worked on it a little bit, but I'm not quite to the place where I think it'll be what we need. I think everybody needs to have a copy of the tree management guide, and it's on the website, so you can look at it there or download it from there. There are sometimes available things that are a little bit more slick looking, and I'm going to try to see if we can have that for the board members.
Brad, I'm a little confused about the meeting times. You said the last Tuesday of each month?
Well, I may have misspeak. It's the 4th Tuesday.
Ah,
If there's 5,
okay, thank you.
pardon me. Okay. So those are the things that are in the works. I think that's pretty much what I as chair need to say. We don't have town staff other than Public Works present at the moment, so I'll speak there. Barry, do you have anything you want to tell us about? You would be welcome to sit up here too. You're a part of the board.
I have nothing to report at this time, other than sometime next week, I need to meet with Mr. Mason to have a few trees signed off on. The only thing I have, or whenever he's
I'll
available.
be around all week.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Maybe Friday afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so going down my list here, do we have a commissioner? Anything you need to say, Mason? Okay. Land care. Barrington?
Not a thing.
Not a thing, okay. And then I've got at-large members, and just in case not everybody's not entirely clear, we have 2 members of the board that are specified. That's the commissioner and land care representative, Mason and Arrington. And then we have 3 members that are at-large members of the board. That would be myself. And at-large means that people from the community that have been appointed by the commissioners to be tree board members, and those appointments last for 3 years. So I'm one. Then the other at-large member that we have is Ed, and as of today, Tyler joins us as an at-large member. So, and I want to encourage everyone to think in terms of when you do things, tree board things during the month, be thinking about whether what you're doing is something that you would need to report on at the board meeting, and if so, be prepared to speak up at this time. So my thought here about today, I put it down as organizational review of future tasks. And I've been thinking about getting us all familiar about the things that we need to be doing during the year, and paying attention to, making sure we're paying attention to them. I think I have pretty well covered the issues, though I may have missed something. But what I'd like to do is to kind of go through the list I have here under new business and talk a little bit about each of the items. And rather than have the chair do it all, which, you know, my predecessor had a tendency to kind of do it all, and we litter. But I think it's healthier for a group to be taking responsibility for particular areas, and I think it's best if you're able to find something to do, or at least one that you really enjoy working on. So the first thing in the list is Montreat Future. That's the new master plan that the town has actually not quite adopted yet. So but it will be significant, and this Montreat Future plan it's 20 years. Is that right, Mason? 10 years. Okay, 10 years. It's a 10-year plan for the town. That at this point there have been 2 public hearings on it, which I think was the plan to do that, and that the next step will be for the Board of Commissioners to think it over and, I don't know, probably maybe amend, maybe not, but eventually we will have an adopted plan named Montreat Future. Mason, is that the way
It's scheduled for adoption. It's scheduled for adoption at the September meeting.
Okay.
So, and I expect there'll be again an opportunity for public comment. But I would expect the commission will adopt. It doesn't mean that there might not be something that might get deferred another month, but I don't know of anything right now that would prohibit it being adopted next month.
So there were two things that I was picking up on in that plan that the board needs to pay attention to. One of them is just keeping the list of trees, the list of they're invasives and also recommended trees that's made available to the public. And it's part of our task is to update that periodically. And
Yeah, it says institute periodic review every 5 years. And I don't know that we've done it in a long time, by the tree board of the recommended species list. That's a list that's attached as Appendix A to the zoning ordinance, Montreat zoning ordinance. And it says here in the plan, and I wasn't part of the committee, but to ensure riparian species, and riparian is a word that means trees that grow primarily in wetland or moist environments. So to ensure riparian species, those that are native to creek sides are included. So that's one thing that the plan has. It's one of our duties that we need to undertake.
okay, yeah, with a particular view of the riparians. Because
It's focus on that, but I don't know where we would.
it's not all oaks and tulip poplars, in other words.
Yeah, but yeah, the tulip poplars are fairly riparian, at least themselves, but I don't know if they're classified as that, but I sure know they grow close to the creeks. They're uphill from them, but they're around them. But yeah, I'm not familiar with, in particular, riparian species here in the Cove. I think most people are more familiar with the upland species, so clearly they want us to pay particular attention to that and make sure that that they're on the recommended species list.
Is there a copy of this plan?
There is, and it's part of the Montreat zoning ordinance, Appendix A, which you can pull up if you've got your computer.
I don't, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll make a point of bringing it the next time, so we've got it. People can look at it.
Yeah,
But y'all will have voted on that before we get a chance to look at it.
it's available online. And
Where?
um,
Zoning ordinance.
Go to the town website, then go to, I think, documents, and then go to the zoning ordinance,
Uh-huh.
and it should be listed as Appendix A in the zoning ordinance. Just scroll down.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, and since there's been the potential that it would be changed and up to the point it's adopted by the board, I have not felt like we need to waste paper printing it out. But as soon as the Board of Commissioners makes its decision, then we can make sure that everybody's got a copy in hand.
I just think we need to make note, just in passing, certainly I think it's great to add the riparian species, but they'll need to be noted on that list that they are in fact riparian species, and if you plant them in an upland environment, or with dry conditions, they're not going to survive, so we just may need to make a note of that. I'm sorry, okay. We just need to make a note that if they in fact are riparian and adapted to wet environments, that they should, not be planted in upland dry conditions.
Yeah, and maybe one of the things we should do as when we're looking at the list here sometime soon is see if we could modify the list to, separate out riparians and upland and it provides some helps, because this is really intended as a help to property owners here in town for right?
That's right. It's
And-
my understanding. It's just recommended species. They're not required. Property owners don't have to plant it. They can plant whatever they want. But it is recommended species. And I assume most of them, I haven't looked at it in a long time, and I frankly, never looked at it particularly closely. But I assume they're mainly native species, but they may include others.
Okay. So the other thing in the master plan there is is that number 2?
Yep, number 2.
Would you?
Sure.
read that to us?
It says the tree board should collaborate with existing stakeholders and their representatives. And it identifies then the Montreat Wilderness Committee, Montreat Cottagers, Southern Appalachians Highland Conservancy, to identify and recommend to town council strategies for protection of our forest and for its health and resiliency, and to propose funding required for such strategies.
My understanding is that would also include MRA and the college.
It doesn't say, but I don't know how we could possibly effectively deal with our wilderness in Montreat without certainly including the MRA, since they own most of the forest. They got to be at the table, and I'm happy and the college certainly has resources with its some of its faculty that they certainly should be included too, Brad. I think those are good points,
Yeah.
but they're not specifically listed.
Yeah.
But it seems to me what that's getting at is organizing some sort of task force involving all of these stakeholders that would act to some degree, that we would organize and put in place this task force that then would meet and develop these strategies and recommend funding to implement the strategies, rather than the tree board itself doing it, but put together some sort of group with that singular focus.
Yeah, this represents a significant shift, I think, for this board to have that kind of involvement. I've for some time I've wished for an excuse to have more direct dialogue with the major stakeholders in this, and this is that opportunity, but it's also going to be a challenge.
I think it also is the opportunity to, take a look at a maybe more comprehensive plan or comprehensive look at protecting those species we have in our forest that are endangered. I mean, we know, everybody, most people don't know, frankly, about the ash borers and the ashes and what's happening with our ash trees. Somebody to take a look at that, to see if there's some strategies to approach that, as well as, we've got the hemlock situation, obviously, that's been dealt with for over a decade here. So to have a comprehensive look at all those species that are being pressured by pest of one sort or another. And so I think it's a great opportunity, but again, it's something outside ourselves we form that brings everybody to the table, and I think it's a great opportunity for the town to pursue.
Mhm. Yeah, and in spite of my fear and trembling, I'm eager for us to be into that. We have to wait for the decision to be made. At least one version that I saw did mention MRA and college as part of that. So I'm wondering what's happened with that. So because they were both represented on the.
But we're in
planner.
charge. We can make sure they're there. This is just
Okay.
the examples.
Yeah.
Doesn't say EG, but it should say EG in this paragraph.
Okay. All right. So Montreat future. Any other thoughts about that one? Okay, so moving on down the list. As we were talking about it last month, the tree management guide got our attention. And it has been a time since the revisions have been done with that. And so I think I think it's something that we're going to need to be setting ourselves the task of reading through that, learning about it, reading through it, and seeing what changes, additions need to be made. I put here, including tree planting plan, because where we left out at it was really like, as COVID was just getting up and going, the planting plan was something we were working on, and that has kind of like languished in the meantime. So I think that's definitely one thing we need to do. It's a piece of the management guide that I think of as essential, but there's nothing there at this point. It's also a little complicated on knowing exactly what to put in it. And actually, I have a question for Public Works on that. It seems to me like when we're thinking about tree planting, I mean, a lot of this has to do with the work that y'all are doing. And a lot of our conversation has been, what do we need to cut down? But there's the other side of that too. Here in town is what do we need to be thinking about planting? And I think we should have you guys should be definitely in the conversation as we work on that plan. Okay. The application to Tree City USA. So Montreat is a member of Tree City USA. You see the signs up as you come into town. To maintain that membership is we need to do an annual application. And it's a fairly, I discovered I did it for the first time last year. I discovered it's a fairly involved application. Not difficult necessarily, but you need to know the pieces and get them in there. You can do it online, but you have to, again, you need to know what the pieces are. I didn't quite pick up on one piece last year, and they were nice to me and accepted it anyway. But when we work with the state forestry person, Andy Pleninger, on getting that done as our resource in getting it done. But it's something that, but you can't do it in advance. So I think they open the door for the applications in September, and it's due at I think the end of November. So we're going to need to, here pretty soon, going to need to be looking at the Tree City application. And so I will be communicating with all of you soon about that. It's not the sort of thing where it's really easy for a group to work on, but I think it's also important for people to know what it is, and so I think at least besides myself, at least one other person should be looking at it and learning what it's about. Okay, Chestnut Foundation. I think I put documentary and town organization. This is more of a future-looking item here. The documentary is a film that that the Chestnut Foundation has done that is, kind of does history and developments. I think it's a very timely thing, because things are going to be changing with what's happening with the foundation here pretty soon. And I think that we should be familiar with it. I would like us to think about arranging to have a showing of the film here at Town Hall. That would be board members, town staff, and, you know, I don't know why we couldn't also open it up to anybody who wanted to come. I've mentioned a few times that the feds have notified the Chestnut Foundation that they're about ready to release the Darling 58 tree, which is the genetically modified tree that is the best hope for the salvation of the American chestnut tree at this point, because they've done this tiny little tweak in the genetics of the tree that gives it the ability to resist the damages of the blight by disabling the one thing that tends to kill the trees. So, once that's open for planting, then we have the possibility of refilling these forests with chestnut trees that are not Chinese chestnuts. You know, the Chinese chestnuts are beautiful trees, and they are resistant to blight. But the American chestnut is a huge tree. You know, that dominates its forest. A mature chestnut is over 100 feet tall, bigger than anything we have in the forest.
But they're not resistant to these.
Right. They're still finding occasionally a resistant tree here and there, or a surviving tree, you know, one that's been an old tree that has not succumbed. And so there may be some resistance there that we don't really understand, but as a rule, they're not resistant. Okay, tree inventory. That was the first thing Gene and I got involved with when we moved to Montreat, was the tree inventory. Walking, you know, at that point it was just going up Assembly Drive, you know, all the way up Graybeard, all the way to the top, looking for trees that were, and looking at the condition of the trees there. And there was over 100 that we identified on that stretch that needed attention, either for pruning or removing or other things in between. There's a lot more that needs to be done of inventory of trees in the rights of way that we have. The thinking has been that we might be better off hiring an arborist, a tree business to do the inventory for us. You know, and there's money that can be made available for that. We've been stuck because last time we applied for money to do inventory, they said, well, you need to finish with the inventory that you've done so far. And we're making progress, right, Barry?
Who is they?
They,
Who is they?
It's the state forestry. But we're going to be doing tree inventory, looking I mean, it's an ongoing thing, right, that when you notice a tree that's damaged, you let Barry know, and generally they do something about it. Tyler does a lot of work here in town, and I think he's involved in noticing ill, sick trees. Is that right, Tyler? You know what to do if you see it. You know what to do if you. So, but the whole tree inventory thing is something we should need to be paying attention to. Okay, invasive species, there's a recommended trees, but there's also invasive plants, and it's a list that we've maintained and we need to look at periodically to update. Another aspect of that is not just trees, but other things that are in the environment here that that we don't want around, that can become a problem, such as, well, Japanese knotweed is one. It's maybe sort of ambiguous in some ways because it's also considered good to eat, but not so good that we have trouble keeping it around. And it grows up so easily and it sends out runners, so when it's there, it's hard to get rid of. Knotweed, I think of English ivy, it's as invasive. A lot of people like the way it looks, but it also can become problematic.
Brad, as I walk around the neighborhoods, especially up on North Carolina Terrace, in my neighborhood, I'm noticing that ivy is all over these 100-year-old stone walls. So I've been going and asking permission from the owners, may I take this ivy off your wall? Because if your wall is going to disappear in about 10 years. And most people have said, yes, please take it off. So I have a one-man army against the ivy on the walls.
Okay.
And does anybody have trouble with kudzu other than me?
I see it now and then, but it doesn't,
I just saw some
I don't have
kudzu
any
for
on
the
my
first time in a while in the front of Anderson, not right in front, but along some bushes along the side in the front part of Anderson. I hadn't seen any kudzu, but I've been looking for it, but I just ran right into it the other day.
Come to 203 Virginia Road. There's a whole pile of it out in the middle of the street. Now, I understand, though, that you can't just pull it up. You've got to find the mother ball or something and dig that up. So I think getting rid of it is tough.
And there's just so much this board can do.
Right.
We're just a tree board, not in charge of,
Pulling kudzu.
but certainly we can help identify, and we can't go on private property, which is where most of this stuff is. So we don't have any authority to do that, but we can identify the invasive species, publicize the fact that the folks need to get rid of it, and maybe, make available the names of some contractors or that can, that specialize in
And know what they're
removing
doing,
those
yeah.
species. The problems like kudzu that you just can't, put poison on it and it goes away. So again, we can be circulate information and be a facilitator, but that's, our role is limited.
But if you've seen it at the college, we could notify the college that you've got a coming problem here that's going to take over all your buildings.
yeah, so I think the board's role is to identify issues like this that we think needs attention and do what we can to encourage things to be done. And I think that's partly communication with the Board of Commissioners, but it's, you know, Anne was emphasizing what she called the Ivy League, you know, getting people out to take care of ivy, because there was a concern, particularly here on the lower part of Virginia, that not that that's the only place it is, but that's where we started, taking out ivy. So I think volunteers can be a great resource. Volunteers for anything related to trees, environment stuff gives us brownie points with the Tree City. They want to see volunteer activity going on. So but you know, my point here is that Mason's right that there's several things that we have some responsibility for, but that's not that we will, you know, be doing the work.
But particularly Ivy, I'd say, I think the unique thing about the Ivy and why the Ivy League has made sense is because it has direct impact on trees and their health, and we have enough of it in our town right of way where we can get volunteers.
Okay, so that brings us down to treasured trees, which I put on the list. Treasured trees is something that has come up periodically. It's something that the people in the town might be interested in. There's not been a great deal of enthusiasm. On the other hand, looping back around, Ed attended, you went to was it Swananoa Tree
Yes,
Board?
Yes, so
If you can
just
give
a
us-
little background. So the chair asked that as board members, he wanted us to pick a subject or an area to be involved in. So I'm going to choose education. So what I did. Okay. So the chair had asked us as board members to pick an area that we were interested in. Is this good?
Yeah.
So I chose education because it's interesting and it's not very scientifically based, we'll say. So anyway, so I did attend at my initiative, the Swananoa Valley Tree Alliance meeting, which is held in the Black Mountain Park in town. And I'm going to pass this out to everybody. And got some, okay. So the situation, a little bit history. At one point, Montree was asked to join, and I'm just going to read from their minutes. That the Swananoa Valley Tree Alliance is a partnership between the Swananoa Valley Museum and History Center, the Black Mountain Parks and Greenway Foundation, the Asheville Greenworks, and other community stakeholders encouraging stewardship and greater public awareness of the irreplaceable value of our trees. Montree is part of the Swananoa Valley, but for whatever reason, we never became members, doesn't matter. But now and there really is, it's not an official thing in terms of joining, doesn't require money.
Hey,
So
I'm
what-
going to interrupt.
Yeah.
Try to keep your mouth close to the microphone. I've noticed it.
Okay.
Is it doing all right?
You gotta back off a little bit.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
All right.
So
Sometimes it's hard
I'm not
to.
going to go into all the details of what's involved, but what you have in front of you is a tree map of the Swananoa Valley with the location of all of the trees that have been nominated and approved. It's a beautiful walking map. It talks about the type of tree, where they're all located, and through some more efforts on our part, my part, Montree is hopefully going to be included on this map. It's both a walking map for the community. It can also serve as a fundraiser for us, which they will do guided tours, et cetera, et cetera. There's 3 criteria for getting a tree nominated. 1 is size, 2 is form and rarity, and the 3rd one is historic or landmark to be determined. We're fortunate in our town to have a certified arborist, Mr. Wiggs, who I briefly mentioned this to him.
And Mr. Kreisman.
Oh, okay. Well, then we have 2.
have 2.
We're even more fortunate. Okay, so there is an official form how you nominate a tree, and we won't go into all that right now because there's a lot more that I need to do on my end. But at some point, it would be nice to see Montreat part of this program with our trees on here, which will also serve as an inventory. They have a lot of resources in terms of identifying trees and everything that we've been talking about in terms of the health of trees, once they do a walk of our community. The suggestion was made to me to get started in this community is we should really focus on Assembly Drive and see if we can come up with 10 trees that we think would meet their criteria. And then they would come out and look at them. It's a really simple process. There's a nomination form, and then there's actually a plaque that gets attached to the tree. And there is one right here at the corner of North Fork and Montreat Road that's just been nominated, and there's a plaque on the tree. Okay, so you can go take a look at it, but it's got to meet the criteria of size, rarity, form, historic landmark, and there's further definitions of what all that means.
So what is the content of the plaques?
You have to take a look at it. I mean, it talks about the type of tree, the date it was nominated, a little bit of history of that type of tree, why it's been nominated, and why it's been certified to be what they call a treasured tree. This will be for both public and private land. Of course, consent has to be gotten from the private owners if they're interested. And like I said, the idea is to end up with something like this, okay, for Montreat. It's beautiful, right? It's a nice, if you have nothing to do one day, take this map and walk the streets and check out these treasure trees that are marked with plaques. So that's going to be my focus for the next month, 2, 3, whatever. I'm meeting with them again at their October meeting.
Terrific initiative on your part. That's terrific. You know, to add to that, we could look at using our town website to every other month or a couple of times a month to focus on a specific species of tree that's that frequents Montreat, that we see frequently in Montreat, to instead of just a few lines, to get a lot of information on a particular species of trees and introduce newcomers to the area as well as people who've been here a long time to what is a red oak, what does it look like, here are the leaves, here's how it's been used in the past and what it's still valuable for, and really educate.
And you can see on their map, they actually show the type of leaf that's on the tree. So they're going to do, in conjunction with us, they're going to help us do that.
That's great.
And the good other thing is it can be a fundraiser, because they will provide guided tours once we establish our tour in our town, and they will do an actual guided tour and charge, nominal amount, like we just had the historic home tour. People will come out for this, I'm positive. That's it. That's my report. I have extra maps if anybody wants any.
Periodically, we have people who want to have a tree set as a memorial for a family member and things like that. And there's been this tendency to resist that. So I think it would be necessary to be really clear on what the criteria are, and to make sure that commissioners are on board with the idea, things like that. So
yeah, I think everything we've talked about today is very important about the counting of the trees, the invasive tree species, this and that. But to get the general public involved, I think this is a kind of program that people can easily relate to and appreciate the trees in our community.
all right, so got a few minutes left in our hour. So I went down the list of things that we as a board need to be thinking about. And I think my question to each of you at this point is, as you look at these and you thought about these, is there something that jumps out that says, hey, I want to be involved in that? or some aspect of that, whatever the that is, one of the lens. And, Ed says education is something that appeals to him, so he's doing that. I would, given that these are all things that we're going to be needing to address as a board, I think it makes sense to start with the things that we most are interested in individually, and then we'll see what's left. And as chair, I'm interested in the Montreat future. I think tree management guide is important. Application to Tree City USA is important. As y'all know, I'm very interested in the chestnut thing. So there's several things here I can see myself being involved in. But given that we're, my other role is to make sure that we're paying attention to everything that we need to be paying attention to over the course of time. So, does anybody want to speak up? So I would ask that you think about that and get back to me sometime soon about what you think you can would most like to be working with. And it doesn't have to be glamorous. There are things that just need to be done that we will need to be doing. So. Any other thoughts?
Well, I'll certainly take a look at the list. There are probably several that I might be interested in contributing to rather than one thing in particular, but, and that may be the case with others too, but,
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Certainly we all have to get involved and pick out some areas to concentrate on.
Okay. Given that between now and our next meeting, it's going to be time to start working on the Tree City application, which is mostly, a lot of that is online. It's, it's logging into the site and working through that and making sure that we have everything covered. And if you have some comfort with working online, I would like to see somebody join me in working that. We could have two of us able to log into that site, and it would make the task make it quite doable, I think.
What's involved in that?
Oh, let's see, what are the things?
You did it.
Yeah,
You did it last year, so.
There's filling in the blanks, how many volunteers during the, do we account for during the course of the year? How many trees got planted? It's information that we gather from the different sources. There's also things about a work plan that involves the public works. There needs to be so it's like, it's what they do, on a day-to-day basis, but there needs to be something documented this is what we're working on. Montreat is different than a lot of the cities, I think. There's a few thousand towns in the country that are members of the Tree City. Many of them don't have that many trees. So it's a different thing, so, but the management of the forest, I think, is an important thing for us.
Tyler and I will work on the tree inventory category, just taking a look at getting a grip on where we are, what's been done to date, what needs to be done in the future, maybe put some sort of information package or outline so that everybody knows where we've been and we have a recommendation of where we go with tree inventories.
Right.
I kind of like the treasured trees.
Okay?
I
We'll
think
work
that-
together.
That might be fun. Now, I'm not going to drive it. I'm not going to drive that bus.
Okay,
Okay,
we'll work it out.
okay.
Brad, I just sent you a copy of the plaque. What
Oh, thank
actually
you.
goes on the plaque.
Thank you.
And the interesting thing, they don't still nail the plaque, this is a piece of information, they just don't nail the plaque, it's got springs on it, so as the tree grows, the plaque separates away from the
It
trunk.
doesn't damage the tree.
It doesn't damage the tree, it's not like nailed in. It's cool. It's $35, that's it, to put a plaque on the tree.
I'd like to see
Okay. Right at the corner.
that. Thanks, Ed.
It's right down there at Joe
Right,
Forums.
you can't miss it, it's right at the corner, the tree that I'm talking about that has a plaque on it, that's the closest one to us.
Okay. At North Fork.
Yeah, whatever this is, at North Fork? Oh, that's Flat, sorry, it's Flat Creek. You're right, Dan's right. It's Flat Creek and,
Oh, right there.
right there.
Oh,
Flat Creek and
Stone
Assembly.
Stone.
Not you, right. Thank you.
let's go look at it.
Yeah, okay. We'll walk over.
All right.
Okay. The idea of looking at the Chestnut Foundation documentary, I'll talk to Angie and see what we could do to arrange. Is this a good space to show a video? Or do we need to think about another location? I'll work on that issue because I think it needs to happen sometime in the next few months. They're not releasing the film to general public yet. What they want to do is to have groups here and there knowing about it. And eventually it'll be, though, released in some more general way. But I'll work on that. And I'll get the application, the Tree City thing up between now and our next meeting. Okay, so any other commentary?
Move adjournment.
Okay,
My second.
moved and seconded? Okay.
Very good.
Thank you, folks.
Meeting adjourned.